Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the return of Legal Lifelines, our virtual panel series in conjunction with Pursuing the Esquire. My name is Danielle Hardy. I am the founder and CEO of Pursuing the Esquire, as well as in-house counsel at Universal Music Group. Welcome to all of our new viewers, and hello again to all of our return viewers. We are excited to see you. We are excited to have you tonight and speak to the one and only Demeka Fields, who is killing it in the sports industry. We're excited. A lot of our viewers, we get feedback. They're like, I want to do sports law. What do? I don't know how to get in. So we're going to answer all those questions today. And we're excited to talk about diversity, mentorship, as well as sports. So at the end, we will have a live Q&A. If you have any questions you want to ask Demeka, just drop them into the chat and one of our team members will facilitate the Q&A. So as we get started, I'll go ahead and introduce our special guest. Demeka currently serves as counsel of global sports marketing and data privacy for New Balance. In her current role, she supports the global sports marketing department in various sports and negotiates and drafts sponsorships and partnership deals with individual athletes and teams across various sports, including football, basketball, baseball, and track and field. In addition, Demeka assists with managing company relations with key stakeholders, including the New York Roadrunners, operators of the New York City Marathon. Demeka also helps to maintain the company's compliance and other data privacy regulations. Prior to New Balance, she served as Associate Counsel for the Minnesota Vikings, where she spearheaded and implemented the launch of the Sensory Room at US Bank Stadium and led contract negotiations for the inaugural Summer Solstice Summer Concert Series and the Premier Lacrosse League tournament. She was integral in the negotiations for several Vikings Super Bowl and NFL International Series agreements. She provided business and legal support in the chief of staff capacity to the chief operating officer and took part in strategic planning, speech writing, and acted as a liaison between the C-suite and other Vikings divisions. As an alum of Howard University, Demeka facilitated and managed the Minnesota Vikings participation in the HBCU Battle of the Brains, as well as other HBCU and diversity initiatives. As a military child, she has lived across cities around the country and the world, and she received her BA from Howard University and her law degree from Tulane School of Law. Welcome, Demeka, to our show.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
So we're excited to have you and get into this sports law. Our last show came off the heels of an entertainment insider. And so we get a lot of feedback. I want to do entertainment. I want to do sports. And as you know, there's a lot of overlap in the two areas. And I imagine that you saw a little bit of that in your role. Can you share with us a little bit of how the two worlds intersect?
Yeah, I think something that people always say, first of all, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. Super excited for everyone to tune in. But you'll see that athletes, I feel like, want to be rappers or want to be in the entertainment industry. And then people who are entertainers really want to be involved in sports. And so there's definitely an intersection. I guess I see it in two parts. So at the Vikings, where I was before, you see it where, we're one of my friends, Travis, he's on the call, but you see where we're sharing content of the athletes, right? And there are different interests outside of just being on the field, right? They're doing other things. And so that's that entertainment piece where we have some people who are rappers or who are musicians or who maybe are photographers. And we're really wanting to get that out and display that they're more than just the talent on the field. And so I think the teams have a hand in doing that and helping the individual players get their story out. And then you'll see from the team side as well, or working with the big leagues, right? We have concerts, right? I'm planning concerts, planning Super Bowl events, which was more concerts, right? One of my favorite memories was booking and hosting Biz Markie, who I was a huge fan of before, and then going through the process of booking him, doing his contract, booking all of his travel, getting him to actually perform and seeing how much fun it was at Super Bowl. That's something that you're dealing with as well. And then coming to New Balance, and you're just seeing how much um, influencers are always around athletes, right? Like these
Yeah.
are real stars now, and so your athletes are really around the influencers,
Mhm.
and the influencers want to be around the athletes. And we see when we're doing different collabs and releasing shoes, right? We're seeing the two mix where maybe Jaden Smith wants to do something not with Kawhi because he's not, he's more quiet, but he wants to do something with Coco Golf, right? And they're around the same age, and so they're wanting to do projects with each other. So there's always going to be that intersection between sports and entertainment, and also sports law and entertainment law.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you, sharing that because, from where I sit as well, I see, kind of the other side of that, the collaboration with the musical, part of the entertaining and the shows and things like that. And so I think either, if you take the sports law route or the entertainment law, you probably will come in contact with the other, at some point. So that's really great for our viewers, to hear, especially those who are interested in a sports career. So can you share a little bit about how you got into sports law? Is that something you always wanted to do, or did you kind of get into law school and decide to do that?
So I always knew I wanted to go to law school. I got a business degree from Howard and was on this thing. I wanted to be a businesswoman. And while I was working with Ford as a marketing manager, I then decided, I'm like, okay, I still want to go to law school. Um, let's make this happen. And I knew, and everyone doesn't know, so I don't want anyone who hasn't applied to school or is applying or in law school, everyone doesn't know they want to do sports. People may enter and say they want to do sports and entertainment, and then it just doesn't happen that way, and it's kind of a dream deferred for a little bit. But I knew entering when I quit my job,
Mhm.
which is a pretty good job, I knew that, okay, I want to be involved in sports, and hopefully that is what will be able to happen. So I only applied to 3 schools, 2 of which had really big sports law programs, Tulane and Marquette. And then I applied to Howard because I just feel like if you go to Howard Law, you will come out with a job. I'm really confident in that. So I was like, okay, if anything, I'll go to Howard. I know I can make it. But went to Tulane, and they just had a really good sports law program, and I knew that. And because I knew what I wanted to do, I targeted schools that had alumni that um, we're in the sports field. And I think that helps if you do know what you want to do, to choose a school that has a program and has a history and a track record, because I got all my sports internships from our career development office, which I don't think a lot of people can say that, but that's how I found a lot of my opportunities, because they had that track record. So knew I love sports. I was always a person watching Sports Center, ESPN. I can tell you the trades that happens is like all these random things. So thinking, okay, I love sports, a fan, but also I love the business of sports. And there's so much that goes on in the background. And so that is what drew me to it. And I'm like, okay, why I'm interested in sports law is because I didn't like that you'd only see Black people as a talent,
Mhm.
right? It's
Yeah.
only the talent on the fields, but in the decision-making positions, not just diversity and inclusion positions, which are new, which
Right.
are great, but I'm like, okay, we need Black people in like decision-making positions, which
Yeah.
is legal and finance. Those,
Yeah.
like, nothing's really going to happen without legal, and then you need your money. So that space, I'm like, okay, this is something I want to be a part in. And then there's just not many of us. When I left the NFL, I think we had 5 Black female attorneys across all of the teams. I think now it's down to
Wow.
4. The NBA, maybe 1 or 2, and I don't know them, so I'm just giving it 1 or 2. And I think I know 2 in baseball. One is my close friend. So there's just not many of us on the sports side. I'm the only Black attorney at New Balance. I think Nike has a few. So it's not that many. There's not a lot of females in sports,
Right.
other than, the female sports. And then there's not a lot of Black females, period, especially when you add the law degree. And
Mhm.
so that's what drew me. It's my love of sports, my love of the business, but also, okay, this is going to be a challenge, and we need to make headway in this space. So, like, let's see if I can help.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad you touched on the lack of diversity in the sports industry. It's similar to entertainment as well. We don't see a lot, when we're showing up to meetings or we're showing up to negotiations, we're just not seeing a lot of people that look like us. And this has been an ongoing issue, for women, especially Black women in the legal profession, as according to the ABA, there's only 2% of us in the entire
Yeah.
legal profession, let alone, our individual industries. And so, was that something that was important to you at the time that you decided to go to law school or, start your career, that, you were coming into a space that you were going to be that positive change? Was that a goal for you?
I think the goal was to be, for me, was to be positive change. I didn't realize the numbers were so low when I applied to law school. I think subconsciously I knew the numbers were low, right? Especially if I wasn't going to a HBCU law school. I didn't expect at Tulane there would be a lot of Black people or a lot of Black females, but there were only 4 in my class.
Wow.
Four Black females out of 210 we started at. So, walking in, I was like, oh, okay, this is right. This is nothing really. And we only had 11 Black people overall. So
Wow.
and that's a pretty big class. And so just to see those numbers, I
Mhm.
think that really started to open my eyes when we, get to orientation. Of course, we all do the count like, okay, these are the 3 people that look like me.
Yeah.
3 of them, at least 2 of them got to be my friend. And so it was really eye opening, but definitely wanted to be some type of change when I applied to law school. I just had no idea that it would be this type just because the numbers were so low.
No, absolutely. And I think, what maybe some of our other colleagues don't realize, that we have additional challenges to overcome, additional obstacles to even get the internship, right? To even get to law school in itself. So, as you sit in your new position, looking back over your beginning of your career up until this point, what major obstacles do you feel that you faced as a Black woman in this space?
I think one of the things is maybe you don't necessarily get the benefit of the doubt. So I remember starting with the Vikings. We had a Black COO at the time who's now the commissioner of Big Ten, and he was really big in my career. I think we'll probably talk about that later. But um, when I first got the job, everyone thought I got the job because I knew him, right? And he was Black, so it was like, okay, so you necessarily might not deserve to be here, but you got the job because this person always brings in Black people,
Wow.
and they maybe don't always have like the best reputation, because it's just like, okay, we think they got here just because of this person. And
Mhm.
I didn't even know him when I applied,
Wow.
right? So people didn't know that, but I didn't know him. We developed a relationship once I got the job, but I just got the job through applying. But when you come in with that, people are like, oh, okay, do you really deserve to be here? So you deal with that.
Mhm.
Sometimes people questioning, and then once they talk to you, oh, you went to this school, right? You have this background. Maybe people start to open their eyes, but then you deal with the other things, right? Maybe people taking you seriously.
Yep.
At the Vikings, no one ever said anything like, oh, we don't listen to Black people. It's never that
Yeah.
um, just overt, like this is just really tough, but it is walking into a room. I remember one meeting we walked into, um, and there were maybe like 15 people around the table. And I just remember walking in and saying out loud, whoa, because it was just so white. And there were only 3 women in the room,
Wow.
2 attorneys from the Vikings team, and myself. So 3 attorneys, but only one other Black person, and that was an attorney at the Vikings. So walking into a room of 15 people and just seeing everyone at the table and being that only person, um, you're like, whoa, what is going on? No one looks like me.
Mhm.
You feel like you have to code switch. And sometimes I think that's a good thing, right? I'm never like, yo, what's sometimes probably I am. I might say yo, what's up. But depending on the situation.
Yeah.
But people talk about code switching, but then sometimes you code switch so much you can't even be your genuine self, and then that's a turn off, because being genuine is really big. So I think we do deal with those things, the wearing your hair out, and then everyone has to come and talk about your hair, like, oh my gosh, your hair's curly. Then you straighten it, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, your
Mhm.
hair is straight. And then you get braids, like, oh, and you're like, look, my hair is gonna change. Like, this is a thing. I don't know how my hair will be next week. My hair is
Absolutely.
actually long. It's not, and you're just
Yeah.
like, okay, so it's just those small things you have to deal with. that, I mean, it's just like it's part of the job, right? And if you leave a job because of those things, you probably leave every job unless you work for
Yeah,
yourself, and you'll still have to deal with it with a client or someone else you're working with on the outside. So I think those are the little things you're always thinking about. And then
mhm,
you think about diversity and no one looks like you in the whole organization. How do you help with hiring? How you do all these things on top
absolutely.
of your job, what you're not getting paid for,
Yeah.
right? You don't get paid for all that recruiting work and everything. I get paid to be a lawyer. And
Yes.
so those are some of the things I think you deal with too, just as a Black woman who cares about trying to bring people up and trying to have a voice. And not everyone wants to have that voice, and that's okay because
Mhm.
everyone is not trying to do that. And I
Yeah.
don't fault anyone, but I was able to find my voice, and I think we that's just something we have to learn to deal with.
No, absolutely. I really appreciate your candidness with that. I think a lot of people on this call, especially, those who are in practice in, very white spaces can identify, with that. At a law firm, in-house, we as Black attorneys, especially Black women, always, like you said, the topic of conversation as far as our appearance, whether it's
Yeah,
hair or you're trying something new with fashion, you're trying to be fashionable but also professional, professional at the same
yeah,
time. So we don't see that with our other colleagues, and that's not something you learn in law school. It's not something you can read about online and prepare yourself for.
yeah,
Normally it's you're in the situation, you're thinking, how do I deal with this without losing my job, or
right.
not taking it so personally, and that definitely is a struggle.
Yeah, I think the taking it personally thing, I mean, some things hit more than others. I think for me, I have to find a balance. Everything doesn't hit me as hard as it may hit others, but I have seen if you let everything hit you, it kind of deters from you being able to do your job. And it gets really, really tough, right? It's like some things, which it's not right. So I'll never say like it should be right, it should be acceptable, just let it roll off of you, but it's some things that you have to deal with internally, and you have to pick and choose your battles, right? Like,
Yeah.
is this something I'm gonna go and fight over and get upset over? Like what really is going to get to you, and what are you gonna say? You know what? You're immature. You need some help. And then if people are coming from a bad place, that's different. Versus some people just don't know, and those people who just don't know, and you can be genuine with and just say, okay, let's have this conversation. You don't have to touch my braids.
Yeah.
Thank you, but you don't have to touch them. Thank you for the compliment. Um, but that's fine. So
Absolutely. And do you think that, you prepared in any way in law school that kind of gave you an advantage coming into practicing as a sports attorney? Was that a club you joined? Was that an internship that you had? What do you think really prepared you for practice, especially in-house?
yeah, so I went straight in house. I started as an intern, and then eventually through a lot of tears and hard work, it became a full-time position. But coming right out of law school, I didn't, have like that training that people say you get from a law firm. But I think the biggest thing for me, I wasn't like the sports law society. I think that helped a little. I don't think that's the end all be all. I wasn't really big in the professor's face who was like our sports law person because everyone else was. So I'm like, okay, I'm not really into doing that. So it was for me, I think being able to get the sports internships, and I had two before I started with the Vikings. And I think that was hustling. My first one with the NBA Retired Players Association, I didn't get paid. So I was living off savings, and a friend from Ford let me sleep on her couch in Chicago, which was super fun, but like wasn't glamorous. I was on the couch. And then with the Saints, the second summer, I did not get paid
Wow.
again. So it was like trying to figure out, right, how to hustle and do that. And then with the Vikings, the first 2 years I interned and I was like super broke. I had a second job that wasn't glamorous. It was like shoveling snow, emptying trash cans. It was a lot. And so I think the thing is, law school is law school. I don't know if I would say there was any class that really prepared me for practice. if you can take a contract drafting class, if you're going to work in-house, I would say that's really beneficial. But I think the big thing for me is just finding those internships, finding those opportunities, staying connected with people. I think that's how you really, really can get those jobs that you want, get insight into those industries. And they'll tell you, like everyone says, like to network, network, network. I think, people are just like, okay, I'm tired of hearing about that. Like, what else can you tell me? But I think that really is the thing. You have to network, and it has to be genuine connections,
Yeah,
right? Like, don't just cold email 20 people, because
right.
everyone gets so many emails
Yes.
that you probably won't really look at it. But if you find a genuine connection, if someone's in your sorority, right, or someone's from the same state or hometown or something, that you can connect with someone, help them to see themselves in you, I think that's really how you make that connection. So law school's law school. Get through law school. You don't have to be at the top of your class. Pray, work hard, pass the bar. But then I think really once you can get in the door with these jobs, then you can really learn on the job, right? They just, like, even when we were hiring the Viking, we just want to see someone with a good attitude and some type of experience. If it's in sports, great. If it's not, fine. Just set yourself up to where you look, right? You look like you have those skills that can help.
No, absolutely. I think, sometimes you can get network fatigue as a law student, because as a student, you're trying to figure it out, like, who should I talk to and not be annoying? But how do I, indicate my interest, especially if I don't know anyone else that's doing this? And so, I think that was important that you mentioned that because fatigue is real. That
Yeah.
networking fatigue is real.
Yeah, I'm like you. If the students feel fatigue, believe the attorneys feel fatigue, because we're like we want, everyone wants to respond to the students, but then everyone has a day job, and so it gets to be a
Yes.
lot. And that's why you don't want to email everyone, but maybe focus on your key 2 to 3 people that you really feel like you can build that connection with. And I
Yeah.
think that can help with the fatigue. So you're not emailing 30 people, because that's tiring. It's tiring. You want to make sure you get the right name, like,
Yeah.
no, don't do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember those days of like, oh my gosh, this is like another job, as
Yeah.
a student. So you and I are both in BESLA. For
Yeah.
those who don't know, it's the Black Entertainment Sports Lawyers Association. How important do you think it is to have a network, of our peers in both, industries as an incoming attorney, a practicing attorney, or even as a law student?
Yeah, I think BESLA, for me, BESLA and SLA, if for people interested in sports, the Sports Lawyer Association, those two are really, really big. What I have found out, and I'm sure it's the same in like entertainment, but in sports, it is such a small, small network.
Yes.
We go to these conferences, and what I will say, anyone trying to break into probably sports or entertainment, these conferences are fantastic. I remember one of my friends, her name is Shamika Qualo. She's the assistant GC at the Cubs.
Okay.
I met her when I was a 1L, and I was like, oh, she's a Delta. Like, let me go. There's one Black girl I saw at SLA. So I chased her down. We talked for a little bit. We stayed in touch, and then we lost touch. And now I talk to her like every week. We just became really, really close. We sit on like different panels and stuff together. And that's just to say, like, the networking is big. We're now in the same network, right? Like, I was a law student. She was kind of in the beginning of her career, and now we're like super close friends. So the network you can build going to these conferences, SLA and BESLA, NABJ, like, it's really, really big. And then it's a great way to meet people when their guard is down, right? When they're having fun and they're talking to you over a drink, and like you connected at dinner because everyone was like laughing and getting loud. Like, that's how they remember you, not from your
Yeah.
code email, but they remember you from that. And then um, you can build those networks. And so even people that I'm meeting now that I'm like in sports, but in fashion and footwear, I've gotten from my close knit group of sports friends who are like, oh, I know this person at Converse, I know this person at Nike, like, you need to talk to them. So people know people. And
Yes.
like I said, you'll see there's very few of us, and we will run into each other again and again. And you never know where people are going to be. So I definitely say, if you can afford it, Beasla, when we get back to having international trips, right, they have like scholarships for students, and you help put on the program, and you can go for a really, really low cost. SLA is low cost for students too. Like, I think those are great ways to build your network. The Black people at SLA get together and really support each other. And so I think if you find these small groups, like, that's really will be beneficial.
No, that's absolutely, a great experience that you shared. I'm newer to Beasley. I wish I would have found out about Beasley as a law student, but I always hear about this annual conference where, it's in a great location every year. It's always somewhere different. And people just make so many, good connections and friendships from these conferences. So if you're watching, you're a student, or if you're new to practice, we definitely encourage you to explore. There's a lot of great programs. BISLA is definitely one. Almost every practice area has, an organization, especially for Black lawyers. So definitely do that research. And I think one thing that is a thread through every piece of advice that you've given is do your research, right? You're researching about your law school and how is that going to help you? You're researching about people you're going to network with. And so I think that's important to be successful in any, area of law, but especially industries like sports where, it is a small group. And so those networks can definitely, help you.
Yeah, and I think it cuts down on time too if you do your research and you're a little more targeted and you know what you're looking for, and you hopefully will make less mistakes. Those different things will happen and come with research. So I agree.
Absolutely. Just as a reminder, if you have any questions for Demeka, please drop them in the chat and we will circle back to them at the end. Just transitioning now into mentorship. So for those who are new to our program, Pursuing the Esquire is an organization that supports aspiring attorneys of color get to and through law school. And a key component of our organization is our mentorship program, where each of our mentees has an assigned mentor for an entire school year. We have workshops and scholarship opportunities, which we are currently fundraising for, as well as other, additional program components. And so I know for me personally, I founded this because I've benefited so much from having mentorship, albeit later in my law school career, as I didn't know any attorneys going into law school. I also went to a PWI for law school, and there were not, as many people that look like me. And I'm actually still looking for a Black woman, to mentor me. So I understand, it's an ongoing, problem that, you may face as a minority in the profession. But Demeka, if you could just share with us how mentorship has impacted, your career, but also your life at this point, and how instrumental it has been for you.
Yeah, I think mentoring is big. I echo what you said. Like, I didn't know attorneys, especially sports attorneys, when I started law school. By the time I ended law school, I didn't know anyone that was really a mentor to me. So, um, it's different when you're going by yourself. I met a couple people who helped, but just like having that consistent relationship,
Yeah.
sometimes it's difficult. I will say, I think the first person who really at a high level was a mentor and a sponsor was my former boss at the Vikings. And it just worked out great that he happened to be the COO, right? So he's the decision maker. Um, but that was really big. And I think for him, he was so used to, right, everyone always asking him for things because he was at such a high level. And being able to create that relationship with him, I definitely, I think, changed my career trajectory. And I think for him, the things he showed, he didn't necessarily like show me like how to draft contracts, right? He wasn't drafting that much, but just how to be around really high profile people, like showing me a lifestyle that I didn't even know. I'm like, people do this, right? People have these dinners, they host these dinners at their homes, or you're going to dinner. We were going to dinner like 5 times a week when I started off as an intern, because we just opened a new stadium. And like any well-known person, Black, white, or other, he was like making sure that I was going to the dinner with him, and he was introducing me and making sure I had a seat at the table to take notes. And something that was really important, we would be in a board meeting, and this was when I was an intern, so I didn't even right? I wasn't an attorney. People weren't like, oh, it's Demeka. They're like, who is this? And, you would think interns just go sitting in the back and, just take notes and kind
Mhm.
of like don't pay attention. And he would always say, and it is such a big deal, he would say, no, sit at the table. You can sit next to me, you can sit across from me, but sit at the table. If we need more chairs for someone else, they can go get the chair.
Wow.
But you don't have to go and shrink yourself. Like, you deserve to be here. And when he was doing that, right, you're super grateful. You're
Mhm.
grateful that he's taking you to these dinners. You're just like, oh my gosh, this is how life is. But then after, now that he's gone on and I'm like, now I'm like, okay, I got myself and I'm doing this thing. It's like, that's huge because
Yeah.
you don't always have a seat at the table and people aren't always creating that space. People are expecting you to like shrink back. You don't deserve to be here. And
Mhm.
so having a mentor that's like, no, you deserve to be here. Take your seat. They can figure their stuff out on their own. That's really, 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 really big. And like just the stuff he showed me, I'm like, wow, a different side of life. And I think that helped, he made me definitely work really, really hard. We didn't see eye to eye on everything, but he invested in me and he allowed me to take a 5-week internship and become associate counsel and become chief of staff, right? Which is just like stuff I'm doing right out of law school. So mentorship for me is really, really big. And because he did so much for me,
Yeah.
um, I try to do what I can for the students that I connect with. And I try, my friends are probably rolling their eyes. If a student reaches out, I try my hardest to connect with them on email and set up a phone call, set up a video call. Sometimes it takes longer than others, but I just understand what it's like to look for someone and you're looking at someone who looks like you and you're like, okay, I see you. I
Absolutely.
don't see anyone else who looks like you. Can you just like talk to me? And it's so inspiring because I reached out to people too. So,
Yes.
I think mentoring is so big. And I
Mhm.
think once you become the mentor, sometimes you take it for granted. But the mentee is like, no, you don't understand how much you've impacted my life, like even this little bit. So I think if you can find that mentor you really, really connect with, that is like the key. And they will be your mentor for life, even if they're not
Mhm.
right next to you all the time. It's like they'll always have your back. And I think that's really, really key.
No, absolutely. I think, especially for, us as, minority attorneys trying to get that shot, right? It takes us sometimes a little bit longer,
Mm,
to get that seat, to get that, position. It's rare that people start in-house, that you and
yeah.
I have. And so I think it takes mentorship, it takes sponsors to really advocate, for your success. And so you just want to pass it on, when you have that.
And
For
it is, and you always want to pass it on to people who maybe everyone doesn't have it all together, because I know I didn't have it all together, but you want to do for people who put their best foot forward. And there are so many people sometimes that are just, reaching out, but maybe aren't the most polite in emails, which really gets to me.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes.
who, don't have their stuff together, who send the typos. You're like, okay, I will mentor, I will try to take you in, but if I put my stamp on you, because then you start representing me, I need you to have your stuff together.
Yes.
And I know sometimes we say like Black people are harder on Black people, but it's definitely like, I know I need you to deliver because there's so few of us that get these
Yeah.
shots,
Yeah.
right? That it's like, okay, if I'm gonna invest the time in you, like I need you to always be delivering, because if you don't deliver, like it's not, no one's gonna say, hey, Demeka, you really didn't do well. They're gonna go back to my mentor and
Yeah.
say, your girl is not what you said she was. And people have no problem like your girl is dropping the ball.
Yeah.
And so I think if you are looking for a mentor, you definitely want to make sure you have all your stuff together, because you want to make your mentor proud that they invested in you and that you made it so really big.
No, absolutely. And I have a follow-up question to the mentor because I think sometimes it's hard for students to approach attorneys, asking them to mentor them, not knowing how long they should wait to ask, once you made that initial contact. And I know I've even, spoken to attorneys who said, let us approach you about mentorship instead of you asking us. So what are your thoughts on, approaching mentorship as a student?
So I think as a student, for me, I think what works best is the students that reach out. And then for me, it's probably being persistent because your first email to me probably won't get answered or won't get answered for a while. It could take time. But I had one girl who ended up interning for us, and I don't think she's on the call, but she got my number through a friend, and I just agreed to talk to her. Had never met her, but I was like, okay, I'll talk to her for you. And we talked, and then it was kind of like, I'll see if I can help you get an internship, but we already got people picked. You're kind of late in the process. And she just stayed persistent. She would email me articles she had written or that she was published, maybe like every 3 weeks or so. And finally, I was like, you know what? I think the timing is right. Let me go see if we can get her an intern spot. And we did. And
Wow.
she was able to intern, and I still talk to her all the time. She's now graduated at the NCAA. And it's just like she stayed persistent, and I felt that she was genuine. And I
Yeah.
think when people can tell you're genuine, that will get you really, really far in life because people can tell when you are and when you're not. So
Yeah.
if you reach out to that someone's like, hey, Demeka's a Delta, I'm a Delta, I'm going to reach out to her. Hey, so, I'm trying to do these different things. I saw what you did. Do we have time to connect? And then after you connect, just follow up, every month or so,
Hmm.
not asking for a job, but just, hey,
Yes.
can we connect? I want to let you know what I'm doing. I just want to provide an update. And I think that's how you build like a mentorship from the bottom. I don't necessarily need someone to say, hey, Demeka, can you be my mentor? But if we establish that relationship, like, you're going to be a top of my mind. Like someone's hiring right out, like this is my person. I
Hmm.
like her. Like I'm going to boost her. So that's big for me.
Yes, and I think, that was really good information for those who would approach you, to be a mentor because like you said, it's a big risk,
Hmm.
referring someone or trying to, provide an opportunity for them. Because like you said, it may be a one and done for them, but then you're still employed there, right? You're
Right.
still there. Your reputation is on the line for another
Right.
referral, you know what I mean?
Right.
Moving forward. And so, like you said, building that genuine connection instead of a one-off, kind of informational, and then they're circling around saying, hey, I saw your company's hiring. Can you refer me?
Right.
It's kind of like, maybe not,
Right.
but
Yeah,
if you're
exactly.
consistent, then I'll get to know you as a person,
Right.
see if you have those skills that, they're looking for as far as, communication and working with, someone and things like that. And I think sometimes students can forget that, piece
Hmm.
of it because they're so focused on, I need this opportunity and I
Yeah.
make contact,
Yeah, no, I think you hit it spot on. I agree. It's like build that relationship. That's going to get you so much further, even if you don't get the internship.
Hmm.
These jobs, when they come up and we know about them, it's like, okay, that person comes to mind. This person comes to mind. I wasn't able to help them with the internship, but I can get them in the door here. Because, like we talked about, the industry is so small,
Yes.
right? And so it's just like everybody knows somebody.
Absolutely. Yes, you would be surprised.
Yeah,
You might meet someone, they're like, oh, I know so and so. And it's like,
right.
okay. And they're going to call them after. Did I just say your
Absolutely.
friend? Absolutely. So, yes, I've definitely experienced that myself. Any tips for our viewers who are looking to break into sports law, whether they're in college, going to law school, or, they might be a 3L and they're like, I'm graduating soon. I'll be applying after I take the bar, whenever they're offering the bar again. What kind of tips do you have for them to prepare themselves to come into the industry of sports?
Yeah, I think the first thing is don't. I think I was talking to a group of students last night. Everyone wanted to work for the NFL, right? Like everyone just had that. I know what I want to do, and this is the path I'm going to take, and it just doesn't necessarily happen like that,
Mhm.
right? I wanted to work in the NFL. I got in the NFL, but I didn't plan on interning for 2 years. Like I can guarantee you that I didn't plan on taking another bar exam. But these are things that just I had to do. So I think first of all, broaden your horizon,
Mhm.
right? Some people are like, I don't want to go to a law firm. I didn't go to a law firm, but I'm not against them because one, the money is going to be better than starting off
Oh.
right away in sports, a lot better.
Yeah.
And then you will just have an experience that you can say, oh, I don't like firms, I like firms, but I got this experience, move on. So I would say broaden your horizon. Think about all sports, not just the popular ones. I will say if you love the NFL, it'd probably be great to work there, but you can get in baseball and then transfer sports. So widen your horizon. And then now that I'm at a brand, I'm like, let's think about brands. It's probably harder to get in right out of school into a brand, but
Sure.
those have sports components too. So I'm like, if you want to be a sports lawyer, work in sports, definitely broaden your horizon. Build up your network, like I said, with your peers, people that go to school with you, just graduated, but also try to start going to those conferences. I think those are just so key because they really help you to network. And then I will say, you can take those transferable skills if you don't go to a firm, but if you work at a nonprofit, right? Just make sure your resume is on point
Yeah.
when you are applying to the position. Just show what transferable skills that you have. Um, and then just be willing to put in the work.
Mhm.
Sports, like when you get in sports, it's probably like that in entertainment. You have to grind to
Yeah.
eventually get. I mean, like now I say it looks sexy now, right? You do these panels, it's great. But it was a struggle for a while, and I feel like it's just now starting to pay off. And so $10 an hour is not great, right? $10 an hour doesn't get you anything fancy, but it gets you in the door.
Yes.
So know what you're willing to sacrifice. You know that you may have to get that second job to do the things you want to do, but then have a plan and know that it'll eventually pay off, right? So just
Yeah.
know that you're gonna have to put some work in. I think all my friends at the Vikings, all the Black people, I think all of us were maybe two interns and started as intern and worked our way up into full-time positions. So
Okay.
that's something that you'll probably have to do. And so just be ready to do that. Don't think you're gonna come in and just like, yeah, hire me. I'm an attorney. It's like, first of all, you don't know anything. So you're more of a liability than an asset. Your first couple years, you don't know anything. I didn't know anything. But be willing to put in the work. And I think if you are and you're humble, it'll all come together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that goes into the investment piece, right? You have to invest, to get to that ultimate goal. And it may not be the job that you see yourself maybe practicing most of your career, right? I think
Mhm.
sometimes the misconception is coming in house, in entertainment and sports is that you're immediately going to jump in and start signing artists, or you're going to start
Yeah.
signing athletes. And that's just not going to happen. You know what I mean? You can work your way up there, but like you having to intern your way up. I had to intern, before getting this job. So I think sometimes just that investment at the
Mhm.
time may seem like an endless tunnel of when am I going to get out of this? But it starts to pay off. It
Yeah.
does.
Yep. I agree.
Absolutely. So I'm going to take some questions from our audience. Our audience has been in the box, excited to ask you some questions. So our first question is from Kirsten. She wants to know, what are your thoughts on successful networking in virtual world?
So I have had a lot of people ask for the Zoom, request the Zoom conferences. And I think that's great, actually. Maybe everyone doesn't necessarily want to be on camera. I will say too, I'm not the first one to be like, let's do Zoom. But I think if you can get someone to do a Zoom, it's great because they can put the face to a name. And I think it feels a little more personal.
Yeah.
And so if you reach out to someone and say, hey, can I do a quick 20, 30-minute Zoom? I think people are probably open to that. And I think that's probably successful. But if not, the phone works as well. But I would say try the Zoom. And I think that will help you build that relationship, especially while people can't go that many places. So, like, this is the time people are not as busy as they usually would be.
Yes, it's much easier to get on the calendar for a Zoom than a coffee, in the middle of
Yeah,
the day, offsite somewhere.
right. Right. No, this is the time.
Absolutely. Our next question is from Yatunde. She wants to know, has your experience as a Black woman in sports, what has that been like, particularly when negotiating with sports teams or brands?
Yeah. So, I think first of all, it's like I'm a lawyer, right? I'm a lawyer and I work on being a really, really good lawyer. But
Mhm.
I do have people who sometimes are surprised, right? They're like, oh, like you're the attorney. I'll get that. But I do think you can bring a different perspective to it.
Mhm.
I definitely don't try to be, I would say, like my white counterparts. I don't try to sound a certain way. I think what really works for me is always being my genuine self.
Mhm.
right? And if it's not super casual by any means, but it's not super, buttoned up and like, very, very proper. That's just not how I am. And I think that's some of the magic you can bring as a Black woman, where a lot of times we have to be personable, right? We have to be likable because that's just how we get positions. You cannot
Yeah.
be Black and standoffish and be really successful. It's just not going to
Right.
happen. We have to be good at our jobs. We have to be personable. And I think adding that to as a Black woman and like, okay, yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I know I deserve to be here.
Mhm.
Yeah, sometimes I have a different take on things, and no, I don't have to be this um I won't say the word, but I don't have to be like this intense person to get these things done, but I can be myself and we can get these negotiations done. And because you like me, I can get more done than coming in and saying I'm laying down the hammer. And I'm definitely not like I'm going to be super nice and
Mhm.
just agree to everything. That's definitely far from the case, but I'm still likable at the end of the day. And I think we can bring that as Black women, like, yeah, I'm the bomb, I'm gonna look popping, and we're gonna have a great time negotiating this contract, and I'm gonna get what I want. So I think you can bring your personal flair to it. I definitely think that helps as a Black woman.
That's great. And I think, sometimes people are hesitant about, how much of themselves to bring to work, keeping your business and your personal life kind of separate because sometimes it can get mixed, especially working from home.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad you, explained it in that way because I think that is super relatable and very clear for them to understand, it works. It does.
I think it does. And I'm big on, I mean, if we're at work, my friends are probably laughing. I am the dressy person. I will wear a red boot, like stiletto every day. Does not matter what's going on. But that's just me.
Yeah.
I will wear prints. I don't think I barely wear anything black. Like it's always very loud but it's put together.
Yeah.
And that's just me. And I will look a certain way, I will look super fancy, but go in and like do my job really well. And that's me bringing myself to
Hmm.
the Vikings. And I'm not going to dress down to fit
Yeah.
in with, like, I don't have a dress down clothes. So when I go to New Balance, y'all pray for me because I don't wear tennis shoes and I'm going to have to figure that out. But I think you definitely bring your authentic self. I wear my hair curly. I wear, like you don't have to look like you think everyone else looks to be successful or be accepted. I think be your genuine self. I'll wear a black is beautiful shirt. I wouldn't wear it to a board meeting,
Right.
but any other day I will wear it. And I think as long as it's tasteful and put together well, you can still be yourself and bring that to work. As long as you're good at your job, you can get away with a lot more too. So
Absolutely. Definitely. Our next question comes from Alexa. She wants to know if you can explain a typical day as an in house lawyer at New Balance and how do you think it differs from the Vikings?
yeah, so I only started 3 weeks ago, so it is
Hey,
really new for me. So thank you. But I
congrats.
would say right now I'm working on a couple of major international soccer deals
Okay.
and with individual clubs, and then I'm working on a couple deals with individual players. And so that is like my typical day is one trying to understand what's going on. So I'm like reading a lot of background on the contracts, like reading old contracts, trying to see how this business works. Because even though it's sports, it's a different business from the NFL and like football. And
Mhm.
so I'm right now like really trying to onboard myself and understand how the business works. But I work a lot with individual player contracts and team contracts versus with the Vikings. It says sports law, but you're doing everything under the football umbrella. So
Okay.
one day I'm like doing a snow removal contract for the building, right, as a sports attorney. Then I'm doing like a coaching contract. And then we just opened up, well, the Vikings just opened a hotel. So I'm doing hotel contracts. So every day is completely different at the Vikings. There were 4 attorneys, and we all kind of took a little piece of everything, but everyone knew what everyone was doing,
Okay.
right? So we all kind of were on the same page. At New Balance, there's 15 attorneys, and I'm the only sports attorney. So if I go ask someone, hey, can you tell me about the Kawhi deal? They're like, no, your person who you're replacing did that deal. He's gone. So I can probably talk to my boss and the paralegal. but no one else deals with sports. So that's really, it's like a big difference, but it's pretty cool knowing though, okay, like the next sports thing, people are just coming to me and I don't have to figure it out. So those are the big differences.
So you're their new go-to for all things sports.
Yeah. Yeah. So pray for me. It'll be an interesting ride, but yes.
Well, I'm excited for you. I think that's an incredible opportunity for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next question is from Tyla. She wants to ask if you could briefly discuss your experience as post-grad, fresh out of law school, starting your new job, and whether or not there was a law school course that helped.
Yeah, so the law school course, I don't know if there was a course that really helped. I didn't have a contract negotiation course offered when I was at Tulane, but I will say if you can take that seminar, if they have one, or like an actual course, that's big, because of course, one out contracts, you're not learning about contract clauses, right? And so that's not useful if you're going to be an in-house attorney. So a contract drafting class, I would say, is really, really great. We had a negotiation class. I took it as a 3L, so I don't know how serious people were taking it, but there's still some things like I remember from that class that I think were helpful. I think with law school, it's you learn how to reason, you learn how to think, you learn how to be disciplined. Attention to detail is huge as a contract attorney. Like that is really, really one of the things I try to get myself on. Like I have post-it notes all over, like check the small things, check these little things to make sure nothing gets flagged. So I will say that's big. And then just, I took the bar, the Louisiana bar was a week bar. I took the bar, ended on Friday. I left for Minnesota on Saturday and started on Monday.
Wow.
And was thinking it was going to be 5 weeks. So I had my apartment still furnished and didn't know what was going to happen. And then the last day of my internship, I asked my mentor, former boss, like, he's like, what do you want to do? I planned on staying. I planned on making it full time. He didn't know that. And I was like, I want to stay. And that was the start of me like staying for the season, then kept pushing it back. So that's kind of how my transition from a law student to taking the bar to being an intern and interning for a while, that's kind of how it went. The first part of the internship, you're just learning, and the Vikings internship was great. You're drafting, you're getting help, you don't know a lot, but you're learning some. And then as I eventually became more of a seasoned intern, then I was able to take more projects on. And that's what enabled me to stay, because I was able to take on these Super Bowl contracts, take on the new stadium, take on the London project, and to work my way in that way. But you're definitely doing the little things. But I will say, always remember the little things help you to learn to get to the big thing. So like you said before, you can't just jump out the box and negotiate a deal, right? Like that ain't gonna happen, and people will beat you up. And I remember my first deal that my former coworker let me negotiate was a Virgin Airlines deal for London. And I had done all the work on it. She was like, you know what? I'm going to let you lead the call. And I was like freaking out. And I was like, girl, I don't know if that's a good idea. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. But it was like those small things. And she was there. I think she ended up taking over, because eventually I was like, I don't know the answer to the question. So you could go ahead and jump in. But it was those little things that she thought I was ready as an intern that built to let me do that. So that's a little bit of my transition from student to bar study to becoming an intern.
I think that's really great that you had that experience, as an intern, that the attorneys really trusted you, and the skill set you had to represent them in that situation. That's very rare, to encounter.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah, and that's what was great about the Vikings. I wouldn't say start in-house everywhere, because sometimes you miss the training, but I had people who were willing to train me and sit down with me and explain clauses to me. And that's key if you're going to be an in-house contract attorney, is understanding the different clauses and how they fit in, because it's not just the front 2 pages, but it's usually like page 17, 25, where they sneak in these little things. And if you don't catch it, you will be in hot water if something does go wrong. So
yes, it's normally those back pages that slide things into.
Yes, the small print will get you.
Absolutely. Yes. Our next question is from Nadia. She wants to know if you have any tips for someone who's interested in finding and applying internships in sports law with firms, whether you have experience or not.
Yeah, so Nadia, if you message me, I will think about this. I remember there were a couple firms when I didn't know if I wanted to do a firm or not that had sports specific practices. And there was a group that would interview out of Atlanta and it would bring all these Black students together. And then it would be just a bunch of firms and organizations interviewing, looking for diverse talent. And I don't know if it's still around, but I will find that if you message me and get that to you. And that was really cool. um, and then I think reaching out to people, if you see a firm with a practice, sometimes they'll have internships in that practice. And even if they don't, if you can get into a firm that has a sports practice, you're not in that practice, but you get in and like wiggle your way over, that's a way to get in. Um, Excuse me, there used to be a website called White Bronco that had all the sports jobs, and now it's no more. But if you search sports law internships, you may be able to find some. And then LinkedIn.
Mhm.
I am not big on social media, but I am big on LinkedIn because I tell my friends, like, there's no money for me tied to Instagram or Facebook, but LinkedIn provides opportunities. And if you're active on there, it's a good way to get your name out. People are now posting more than ever that they're hiring. People are looking for diverse applicants. So I would say be on LinkedIn, make sure your profile is up to date, your picture looks good. Um, but be active on there because people are posting all the time and you may find opportunities up there that they're not posting to their website.
Yes, that is fantastic advice. I'm a big LinkedIn proponent as well. I think it's such an untapped platform because you literally
Mhm.
have a directory of anyone, that you'd want to get in touch with. And you can message them. So
Yeah.
I think that's great. The next question we have is from Rylan. She wants to know the best way to find sports internships if you don't go to a law school that is big on sports. So if they don't have a program, what is a good way to get into those internships?
So I think again, the LinkedIn, searching the individual organizations. If you can think of one, like if you're like, oh, I want to work with Gatorade, like searching the Gatorade website. Legal internships, I will say a lot of times aren't posted on websites all the time. That's why I think LinkedIn would be a good proponent, reaching out to people. Um, and then I'm trying to think of another way. I know I was on a call with Tulane last night. They have the big program, but there were students from Southern on the call, from LSU on the call. So they found a way to get tapped into Tulane's sports law program. And so maybe your school doesn't have a big program. If there's a school in another city or in the same city that does, you can get tapped into their program and go to their events. And now that everything is virtual, look into these groups and just say, hey, can I attend? Because I see you guys are having this. Check their Instagram page. Like people are posting, like, hey, can I attend? I don't go to your school, but I think this is cool. And I think most of the students will let you, and that's a good way. So tap into Tulane's because I know they had people yesterday that didn't go to the school that were on there. So tap into Tulane's, Marquette's. Howard has something, University of Miami, we would get students from. So look at some of those schools and just ask to be involved.
I think that's great. That goes again to your thread of doing your research, right? You're
Mhm.
looking to be resourceful, which is a great skill as an attorney to be, and starting that, before you get into practice would be really great. Our last question comes from Jordana. She says that she's a part-time law student working at night, going to school at night, but working full-time, which limits her ability to be a part of organizations or law review, of the
Mhm.
sorts. So she's asking for tips for someone who may not have the glamorous, resume as the full-time students may have more time for.
Yeah, I think trying to get that experience, even if it's a little, like even if it's the 10 hours, can I get a shadow in? Or even if you shadow for 2 weeks, and it's not much, people don't have to know that you were only there 5 hours, right? people just see what's on your resume, you speak to it, make it sound good, get in and like be able to do the job. So I think there's a way that you can find opportunities, whether it's an agent, whether it's with a team, you make that connection with someone where you're like, hey, can I just do a shadow, I don't know, for 2 weeks? It's you're gonna have to be creative with those opportunities, but you can definitely do it. At the Vikings, we used to have people shadow for a week, and I don't know how useful they were, but then they were able to say they interned at the Vikings, right? Like they would put it on their resume, and that's all it was. And so I think being resourceful, of course, but being creative and like, okay, because you have to work, right? I totally get that. You're not able to maybe have those big opportunities like other people are because you can't dedicate the time, but see if someone is willing to work with you on off hours, or you can provide a little bit of free labor um, to them, and they'll let you put that on their resume, because once you get something on your resume, that will help you get your foot in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. All you need is that one foot in, and it just is a game changer.
Yeah.
For sure. But that was our last question. Demeka, it's been a pleasure speaking to
Yes.
you today. I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. I know our viewers did as well. Just hearing all the gems that you dropped today, trying to get into sports. Hopefully, you'll see more of us coming behind you, in your industry. And if we ever cross paths, I look forward to it, as we may intersect at some point for
Hopefully.
sure. Again, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to our viewers, as well as supporting pursuing the Esquire. I really, really appreciate it.
No, thank you so much for having me. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I was so nervous. I'm like, oh my God, is anyone tuning in? So I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Hopefully I said something that can help you along your journey. So I appreciate you, Danielle. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all for joining in tonight. I know it's a Wednesday. We appreciate you taking the time. Stay connected to us. We're on Instagram at Pursuing ESQ. We're on LinkedIn, Pursuing the Esquire, as well as YouTube. If you want to catch the replay of this episode or share it with a friend, check out our YouTube channel tomorrow. This will be posted. Demeka, if they want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
I would say you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll like check that regularly, just because I just did this. So reach out to me on LinkedIn. I believe you guys can see how to spell my name. Reach out, give me a few days. If you're like, she's taking too long, don't be afraid after a week or so to reach out again. Just, hey, did you see my email? And I will definitely message you back. And if you need help or we're trying to connect, we'll definitely find time to do that.
Oh, that's great. Great, great, great. Take her up on this offer. This is a very rare opportunity to get in touch with, someone inside the industry who's willing to chat. Because sometimes, that's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard sometimes. So again, thank you all for joining. Demeka, thank you again. I will be in touch with you personally soon. And I hope that everyone has a great rest of your week. Take care.
Bye.